Welcome to Season 4 of Strange, Rare, and Peculiar, the Homeopathy podcast where truth seekers belong. Denise, Straiges, and Alastair Gray will take you on a journey through homeopathic philosophy, modern scientific exploration, clinical deets, and the undeniably true, from homeopathy past, present, and future.
And we are underway. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon.
In the beginning, we used to say, we were just talking to ourselves and nobody was really paying any attention. And now we hear from enough of you that, and of course, the stats show that people are really listening. And that means something to us because the purpose of this podcast is that we want to really talk about homeopathy in such a way that inspires everyone who's involved in homeopathy, whether you're a student or a practitioner or just someone who, loves the idea of natural medicine. We want to inspire you to really think about what we do, to really get involved in asking questions about the philosophy that informs how we use those little pills, right? Because homeopathy isn't about the pills, it's the application of principles. And those remedies were made to go along with it. So that's what we're here for. And the fact that we are not the only, nerdophiles who are interested in this gives me great hope.
Nerdophiles.
I just made that word up.
That's quite a word.
Nerdophile.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Why?
Because
like a bibliophile.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of implications.
What?
Well, that we just sort of spend our lives wearing our glasses in the library.
What's wrong with that?
Well, we're multi-dimensional beings.
We're more than that. We're cute.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a jumpsuit. And
I've been bitten by a lot of things.
Oh my gosh. Alastair had Lyme for a good portion of the summer, and he is Lyme free. But
the summer of 25.
Oh my gosh.
Bleh.
But then he got bitten by what we believe to have been a black widow spider, Latrodectus mactans. And
on the right shoulder.
Which led to bringing back, I think, that venom. Well, and then 2 days later you were stung by a bee, or the next day you were stung by a bee. So you have been all venomed. Somebody said that
it's biting season.
It's biting season, like Spider-Man, that we should, between the two of us with our spider bites, we should be able to fly by now.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Anyway, it gave me lockjaw. I couldn't move my mouth for about literally a week, which made chewing impossible.
It was not a week. It felt like a week because you couldn't eat a burger, but it was not. It was only 2 days. Homeopathy did get you through.
Sure did.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, nice work.
Anyway, okay. Actually, what Hahnemann would say is that homeopathy didn't heal you, God healed you. Which brings us to the focus, as I mentioned, is to inspire us to be inquisitive, right? And to really think about what it is that we do, because at the end of the day, there's this funny thing that has happened in homeopathy. And that funny thing is that this medicine has become all things to all people. Somehow, it's like a shapeshifter. No matter what you think you want it to be, it supposedly does that. And it does it by taking this little tiny pill, right? That if you take all of them, the wrong one, too many of them, not enough of them, it doesn't matter. So I think we should start by just thinking about sort of how that's possible. I mean, have you ever thought about that?
I'm not quite sure if I understood what you were saying.
Because
what I was thinking is that, what's the clinical situation? Is it my husband annoys me a lot of the time?
Right, which is why some people say, can you give me... Like, it's as if you can give somebody a remedy and their husband will start washing the dishes. Or improve their hygiene.
Or trim their beard.
Or listen better. It sounds like we're talking about someone familiar.
Can I talk about croissant?
No. Not now, not now. There's enough in this intro. We need to get to the
All right.
point of it. And so I thought if we are going to if we're going to talk about what homeopathy is, right? Let's start with a quote from Hahnemann, and I have pulled a couple of them that I love. And the first is from a letter that was written to Hahnemann's sister-in-law. So Melanie, her sister, and I'm not going to read the whole letter, but just the opening line says, "I sought truth earnestly and found it." It's such a beautiful letter. So the facsimile of that letter, if you're interested, you can find it online. Just Google Samuel Hahnemann, "I sought truth," and you'll find it. And it is, it was in, I think the Homeopathic Recorder published it, because it's like, it's often shown as a facsimile of Hahnemann's handwriting and signature. So it's used for that reason. Anyway, it's beautiful. The "I sought truth earnestly and found it" was written in English. The second part was written in German, and then the third part in French. And so it's a letter in 3 parts, and it's all on one page so that it's suitable for framing. Keep the wind chimes as your free gift. And it's so beautiful that one of our dear friends and colleagues, Kaylee, who actually is the voice behind the new intro and all the ads.
The breathless,
yes,
sexy voice.
The sexy voice of
Kaylee Braz.
So she has it tattooed on her arm, which I love. Yeah. Inked in. So this idea, "I sought truth earnestly and found it," really speaks to the fact that Hahnemann was looking for something more than just a medicine. He was looking for something more than, can my poison ivy stop itching, and can I, have a firmer, more consistent stool? He was thinking about this idea that homeopathy is truth. And I think that in the time that we're in, where artificial intelligence and lack of consensus among people about what the truth is, what they're hearing and what they're seeing isn't always reliable. I think that "I sought truth earnestly and found it" means even more. Do you think?
I do.
Yeah.
It's very, if you're talking about the highest aspirations of who we are and what we do, and homeopathy's true capacity, then yeah, it goes beautifully.
Right, because there are implications about it. So if there is a truth to homeopathy, and those of you who have listened closely to these podcasts would have heard, we had an episode that was formed around one of my favorite phrases, which is "the truth may change your opinion." And that idea is around the fact that this idea that homeopathy can be all things to all people, interpreted however you want, applied however you want, using the medicines as if they don't have a guide for how they can be used safely. I think that's, that if we just go back to Hahnemann's intentionality, that anchors it.
Yeah, it's interesting though, but isn't that ultimately the double-edged sword of having a discipline or a system that is able to deal with any symptom? Because it means that symptom could be in allopathic medicine related to the teeth or dentistry, or it could be related to the stool, gastroenterological, whatever, or the feet, where those are 3 different disciplines within allopathic medicine. And then the obvious fourth is with its capacity for dealing with mental and emotional upsetments, then that opens it up to the world of the mind. And so it can be a thing for different folks.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about, because it's if you're following the guidelines for which it was for which it was delivered, right? You're looking at it from a particular perspective, like the foundational tenets of homeopathy, and I boil it down to just a core 4 for ease in communication. These are like the top 4. It's that there's one remedy at a time for the largest totality of symptoms that can be perceived, prescribed according to the law of similars, and given in the minimum dose to initiate the healing process. Now, obviously, similars is really the first principle. I just like the way that it lays out. But if we think about it, we are so far removed from the principles of homeopathy that even one of our esteemed institutions, the National Center for Homeopathy, has decided that the single remedy is no longer important enough to mention in their Homeopathy 101.
Superfluous.
So it must be superfluous. So in the recent edition of HT, Homeopathy Today, on page 5, I believe it is, they have Homeopathy 101, and they include 3 of the principles, but not the 4th principle. Well, not the principle of giving a single remedy. So I think that, we've moved so far away from what homeopathy is that even
outrageous.
Well, that even our supposed advocacy association has left that out of the picture.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that doesn't mean, for example, that a person who is in a crisis won't be given more than one remedy in a very short span of time. Or even, as we've mentioned, when I stepped on a ground bee nest a few years back and was about to go into shock, Al put a whole bunch of things into water and had me sip it until I was stabilized, and then we could look at which individual remedy was appropriate to carry forward. So I think, rather than sounding like sort of rule-bound and dogmatic, obviously there are exceptions to everything, right? But this is, this is what we're up against. And it's interesting because we just recently submitted our re-accreditation document to ACHINA, which is the accrediting body for homeopathy schools. And, we had to address sort of all the ways that we conduct our business and so forth. And one of the things that we talked about was, we did not so much in our document, a little bit in our document, but, as an institution that is really trying to teach the highest ideal within homeopathy, then you're asking a lot of students, and you're asking them to not listen to some of the chatter that's around, or even to consume some of the media that's been made about homeopathy. I think that's hard. I wish it weren't that way.
Me too.
Yeah. Anyway, but to go back to Hahnemann, because I think, to me, it's like everybody's going to make the decision to do what they do. But like, if we can inspire people to think about why following the guidelines that Hahnemann set forth is worthwhile, then I don't know, more people will have the gift of that deep level of healing, right? So, and we know that it's difficult, right? We know that. There's a quote that I want to read you that is actually one of my favorites, because I think it reminds us just that there's no free lunch. You can't get the miraculous levels of healing unless you do the work to really understand what this, capital T truth is, working toward capital C cure, right? And those words, I think when you capitalize them, it's like you have to see them in a relative context. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a quote from the preface to the first edition of the Organon. It's the last paragraph, and this is from 1810. So from the very beginning, when Hahnemann published his first philosophy book in 1810, in his introduction, he closes out with, quote, "I must warn the reader that indolence, love of ease, and obstinacy precluded effective service at the altar of truth, and only from freedom from prejudice and untiring zeal qualify for the most sacred of all human occupations, the practice of the true system of medicine. The physician who enters on his work in this spirit becomes directly assimilated to the divine creator of the world, whose human creatures he helps to preserve, and whose approval renders him thrice blessed." Isn't that just gorgeous?
Not blessed. Thrice.
Thrice blessed. So this idea, indolence, love of ease, and obstinacy preclude service at the altar of truth. In other words, you're going to have to work harder for it, right? And that the people who are working hard to truly understand what Hahnemann has discovered, which basically amounts to the elixir of life, that's really different than being handed a recipe book and told, give all of these things to do, I don't know, God knows whatever it's going to do. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying that's really different. Like, homeopathy is built on principles and premises that lead us to that space where Hahnemann was searching for truth. Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about.
Really appreciate it, and I also love it. Obviously, I'm just being facetious. But see, and it's quite a joy actually to be, to live with someone who says, "Honey, where's the first edition?"
Yeah.
And I go, "Well, it's over there on the shelf." And she says, "No, it's not." And then she finds it, and then she says, and I said, "What are you doing?" And she says, "I'm looking at how the first, the third, and the sixth edition are different between the with reference
Footnote
to
the
aphorism 6." And I think to myself, I wonder if anyone else is having that conversation on the planet.
If they
And I
want
don't
to, they
think
can
so.
call me.
Yeah.
If you want to, just call me. Because because
It's actually really cool. I'm glad you've been contemplating that, because I've been contemplating other things, mainly
the rugby, the cricket.
AI and its application in homeopathy, and a few other things. There is a big rugby game this weekend, as you know.
I already find it tiresome to have the AI conversation, but
Yeah.
but because it's not going to do what the human.
So how do you say to a prospective student of homeopathy, "Come on in, it's going to be hard. Are you up for it?"
Yeah.
And especially when there could be other, say, schools that say, "We'll teach you the secrets to the universe and give you the keys to the car."
And you don't even have to come to class. You can just have some pure mentorship.
Yeah.
Give those sick children medicine. Yeah. I really, I find that really tough. Yeah. I mean, I think for students, it's funny because what is that expression? Water finds its level. And I think people find us because they really care. And what we try to do our best with is to have student support so that everyone has a shot at learning this. Because I don't think just because it's hard doesn't mean you can't do it. People do hard things all the time. I ran a marathon, for example. I like to say that because I use the word run, which technically isn't what happened.
You completed.
I completed a marathon, and there were points at which I was doing something akin to running. No, I ran it. I just didn't run it really fast.
Yeah.
And yes, the lady with the purse was ahead of me, and the guy going backwards was also ahead of me. But I still made it.
You did.
With difficulties.
So I love what you're saying, and that some of those pithy quotes are really important to be reminded of.
I have more, but I have a thing. So, for example, the reason I was looking at aphorism 6 is because I'm speaking at a conference, and I'm talking about some principles in homeopathy, and they're in the footnote to aphorism 6. There's a Latin phrase, and I wanted to make sure that my Latin translation from my mind and my memory was actually accurate. And when I didn't go into my ancient language translator. I just Googled it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I got were a whole bunch of quotes or a whole bunch of hits from different people, and it was all related to homeopathy and Hahnemann. So this particular phrase, right? And so, which has been, is used in naturopathy to describe the practice of naturopathy. I'll grab it in a sec, but anyway, the reason that I'm saying
naturopathy mainly stealing the best of
homeopathy
yeah. And claiming it as their own.
And so I was checking this out because there were people like, for example, George Vitulkas writes about how the sixth aphorism, which by the way is aphorism 8 in the first edition of the Organon, which combines with what had been aphorism 6 in the first edition, if you want to nerd out with me. But that being said, George Vitulkas talks about it as being the root of, he and a bunch of others, I just use his name because people know who it is, but that in this 6th edition, where Hahnemann is talking about, here, I'm just going to read it. This is, I'm reading from the O'Reilly translation in the footnote to 6 in the 6th edition. The last paragraph in 6. The medical art practitioner can never see the spiritual vason, the life force that creates the disease. and he never needs to see it. In order to cure, he only needs to see and experience its disease effects. Therefore, in the eyes of the medical art practitioner, is not that which reveals itself to the senses by disease signs the disease itself? What else is the old school looking for in the hidden interior of the organism as a prima causa morbi? That was the Latin I went
Prima
to. Yeah,
causa
morbi.
morbi.
Basically the root cause of disease, right? Or the first, prima being first, the first cause of the disease. While looking at the same time rejecting and haughtily disdaining the disease presentation that is clearly perceptible to the senses. That is, the symptoms that audibly speak to us. What else do they want to cure in disease but these symptoms? And so what these other folks were talking about was the miasmatic root of disease. And I don't think that's what he means. I think he means that sort of that disease begins on the energetic level, on the interior, and that it could mean anything that is a dynamic disease. And so what I did was I went to the third edition, which I realized my third edition was the American third edition that was published after Chronic Diseases, because mine was published in 1831. So I went back to the first edition to see whether or not the root of that was there. And I think that just with further investigation, that he's not talking about miasmatic root of disease, because he wasn't there yet in his...
No.
You know?
Because ultimately when he decides that, he says, well, disease is, when it comes to Meisentime, disease is caused by millions of tiny animals that we can't see yet. And he's talking about the invisible Wesen,
right,
which you cannot see, no one can see,
Yeah.
although I believe some people can.
Yeah.
And but what we can see are the effects. We can see the effects of the wind,
Right.
and not the wind itself. We feel it and see it.
So I think he combined a couple things, and it's fun because this week in teaching, so the last 2 weeks for our semester 2 students, I've been teaching Introduction to Chronic Diseases, Miasms, and I spent this week teaching the psoric miasm, which I love to talk about with them. And so it's interesting because there is at the beginning of Hahnemann's understanding of miasm, of course, the way he uses the term miasm, which has then been reinterpreted by lots of people, right? George Demetriadis talks about the infectious principle. Misha Norland talks about the rut or the groove. And to Misha's writing in the Signatures, Miasms, and AIDS book, he writes about it as like it's more the inherited predisposition. It's kind of from the standpoint of the sins of the fathers, basically.
Yeah,
right.
It's that energetic transmission of something. Yeah.
Which it actually doesn't matter which you agree with. However, just using this example of the footnote to 6, like there, he's not talking about miasm. I mean, he's just talking about dynamic disease, I believe. And when you go back to the first edition to see, to look at the trajectory of discovery, it becomes apparent. Anyway, why this level of detail and minutia? Because I think that
a fine question.
You're like, can't we get on back to the fun part of the conversation? Because I think that, look, what we're seeing now, what we are being asked to work with are complex challenges where children, the thing I come to all the time is PANS and PANDAS. Pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric syndrome caused by or related to group-based strep for PANDAS. And when you look at that, I think I left out something in my... Anyway, you know what I'm talking about when I say PANS and PANDAS. I think I left a word out, but... Anyway, but when you look at what we're being asked to do, when these little kids present themselves, where they are in psychosis, some of them, we should be asking so many questions about whatever it is we're about to give that sick child to ensure that we do not have any doubt that what we are doing is based on years and years of experience, which when you look at a disease like PANS and PANDAS, for example, or any kind of complex autoimmunity, you're basically looking at developed psora, right? And so to approach using homeopathy without full knowledge and expression of that, and what it means to see something through that lens, which is not removing the miasm by giving the nosode and all this other stuff that has come out that are just shortcuts. Like, I think the kids deserve it. I really do. And so that's why we want to inspire people to really think about it and learn it. You know, sorry, I'm going on. Can I just say one more thing? You don't look like you're jumping to say something, but if you want to.
Well, what I was going to say is that, to square the circle, I don't really care about the how homeopathy works.
You mean like
question.
mechanism of action?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily need to know the results of the succussion process from a biochemical point of view.
Right.
But I want to know that whatever we use can be used safely.
Yeah.
The safety part of it matters
So much.
to me. Yeah.
We had a discussion, and we have these fireside chats at AHE. So part of the student experience is community experience, and we get together every week during the school year. Many weeks during the summer, but every week during the school year. And it's just like an open time for people to chat. And someone and the discussion came up this past week just about that many of the students who were there who have come to us came to us because they have had experiences in using homeopathy in ways that are kind of off script that left them less healthy than they were. And one woman told a story of how she shared for the first time with the community just how sick she was after doing a whole bunch of protocols, like really sick. Yeah. And she said she could have died. Now it's her story to tell. Obviously I'm giving only bare bones, but it really it was just like cold water in the face. But the nice thing is she saw an AHE grad who sorted her out, and she's good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it made me proud. I don't have any idea who the grad was, but
wow,
whoever it was, thank you.
Good story.
But and this is not to dish on people who are trying other things. Please don't take it that way. But I think for if you're a practitioner doing that and you feel confident, that's like you and your experience, and that's okay. I think for new people coming to homeopathy who have not been given information about the fact that there actually are there are kind of best practices and guidelines that have 230 years of clinical evidence behind them. I mean, I can confidently say that I never saw in my own practice or a teaching clinic someone who came and said that they were worse off after using homeopathy until 3 to 5 years ago. Would you agree with that?
Don't think I ever heard it until recently.
Yeah. So and people would say, man, I had a wicked aggravation, or I saw a prescriber who would give me lots of high potencies and I would always have a bang, and then I would feel better. But you've told stories about early days of prescribing where posology was maybe not as nuanced as are with it now.
I had a client who, after a remedy from me, needed to put her head in the freezer.
The freezer lady, that's exactly who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
So it's like, not to say that it hadn't happened. And I also want to just be transparent and clear and say that, when people, because we talk a lot here about the dirty word of classical, right? Which is to say that people who think that folks who are using homeopathy as it was intended don't get good results. And we'll talk more about this later. That's not Hahnemannian homeopathy. That's post-Kentian homeopathy that has taken on a life of its own. And that has been a major impact in homeopathy education for the generation of prescribers that people will be seeing now. And so I would agree and honor the assertion that there are folks who were quote unquote classically trained who do have some challenges. And look, we have people who come to us and say that they get much better results when they use a limiting paradigm. Like, Al, you taught the Boninghausen TBR2 this week. Mm-hmm. So that, I think, as a methodology and as a way to, perceive the problem is amazing. But you only get 126 remedies?
134.
134? I've had the wrong number all this time.
No. I just realised that if you're using Dimitriadis's, he added another 9 remedies.
He did. Thanks, George. Okay.
Hey, puss.
That's Al calling our cat, Luna Lovegood, who's screaming on the stairs.
Where is she? Oh, up there.
But if you have so there are people who will say, when I was working from what I had been taught, I didn't get good results. I switched to Bonninghausen, I get better results. That's an analytical tool. That has nothing to do with, does classical homeopathy work? Or, people who have, learned sort of all the sort of very emotionally tied basis to prescribing that isn't taking into account the full expression of the physical symptoms, then they might do polarity analysis and find themselves in better shape. And with all respect to, oh my gosh, I just lost his name. Heiner Fry, sorry, I had a moment, who I think is one of the loveliest people on the planet, loveliest humans on the planet. You can use a polarity analysis. We always use that. It's called, crossing a rubric as a core strategy in cases where that is important. So but I love the fact that people who were trained in a way that was too loosey-goosey around the edges found that, which gave them a window into better accuracy in their prescribing. But they're prescribing according to principles. So that's just sort of learning how to do it takes some, it takes some nuance. So anyway, I thought I wanted to start this season.
Were you going to talk about the difference between aphorism 6 in 1, 3 and...
Oh, I can.
Well,
not 3, just between 1 and 6.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Well, I was a little bemused and surprised, and...
You were laughing at me. It was funny. Wait.
I'm done.
So the first edition that we have, it's a cute little one, and it has these essays in the back. It has it has a whole bunch of stuff in it anyway, and it's Al's book, and I had it. I took it and I had it in my office, and then he took it back, and I didn't know, but when I looked for it, it was gone. So whenever he goes, yeah, I took it, I put it on my shelf, and I was like, why? He goes, because it's mine. I'm like, but you're not using it. I need it. I'm using it. He very, very lovingly let me have it back. So it's actually long, aphorism 6, but the aphorism is short, but the note is long. But he basically, I love this, he says, the invisible disease producing alteration in the inward man, together with the visible alteration in health, the sum of symptoms, make up that which is called disease. Both together actually constitute the disease. It's totality. I always think of that in contemporary times as aphorism 7.
It's so interesting because for whatever reason, I think about that inward and the outward disease constituting the whole.
Yeah.
That statement. That 15 comes up in 15.
Oh yeah.
I always think about it in 15.
And then he goes on, if you can get your hands on, which I'm sure you could just go to Internet Archive and get a first edition of the Organon. It's really interesting because he gives this great example that it's too long to read, but I would love for you to see.
Yeah, it is.
It's like he's talking about how he gives us this example using a bullet and how inward and outward change occurs. It's really worth a read. And he doesn't keep this same imagery going, or at least I don't recall it.
I don't think so. I think he gets rid of that.
And it becomes the magnet.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sees it differently. Anyway, but I really like that. Like if I had one of those, could you have dinner with anyone alive or dead? Obviously I'm choosing Hahnemann, and this would be on my list of questions. What was the difference in the inward and the outward expression of disease, and like how did you get from the bullet to the magnet? The next thing, so aphorism 8 in the first edition is the one that we now know as our current 6th edition, the unprejudiced observer, knowing the worthlessness of abstract speculation, which cannot be confirmed by experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that comes later. I love that.
Very good.
It's really fun. Yeah, I wonder... sorry, I just got sidetracked looking at aphorism 20 to see if it was the proving aphorism, but it isn't. It's the stronger similar aphorism.
So the first edition is unfamiliar. Everything's catawampus.
I haven't read it in a while. Remember when I started to do like the comparisons? Because the only comparisons that I have the comparisons between the 5th and the 6th, which I find really helpful.
Yeah.
But I'm sure somebody has already done it. I don't want to redo it.
Well, Julian Winston did it.
Every edition?
No, he did the 5th and the 6th.
That's what I have. Okay. Okay, I have just one more quote from Hahnemann that I grabbed
Really?
from my chronic diseases, which I think we need a picture of the spine with all of its sticky notes of many colors and notes. But
Looks like an Australian parakeet.
So this chronic diseases, this is the Tafel translation from 1835, second edition.
Mm-hmm. I think you might find my name on the cover of that book.
Sorry? It's your name is on the inside front cover.
Yeah,
I know I stole yours. I don't know why we have 50 of these. You know, it's not like the nice one. We have originals, but this is Okay.
Just saying.
A pattern is really coming through. Yeah.
What's mine is mine. What's yours is my own.
I'm really sorry. You can have it back. I'll do it to another one. Anyway, this is the author's preface to the first edition. So this was written in 1828. So when he first introduces chronic diseases, and the very opening to this incredible gift says, quote, "If I did not know for what purpose I was put here on earth, to become better myself as far as possible, and to make better everything around me that is within my power to improve, I should have to consider myself as lacking very much in worldly prudence to make known for the common good, even before my death, an art which I alone possess, and which it is within my power to make as profitable as possible by simply keeping it secret." Isn't that beautiful? It goes along with that first thing that we read about, I sought truth earnestly and found it. And this is,
I could have kept it and made a truckload of cash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or I could have been a charlatan and sold people a false bill of goods. But he said, nope, I'm gonna seek truth. I'm gonna keep going until it clicks, until I understand it. And so, when we get to chronic diseases, this is after he took, a hiatus from 1816 to 1828.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, over 12 years of rethinking his premise and principles, and came back and said, I've got even more to bring to the conversation. And it's with that he says, he basically cracked the code. And there's this thing in medical alchemy with those who were really searching to find the elixir of life, to find that mechanism of truth in healing that brings about, right, a return of the life force to a person who is otherwise losing life. And that is, there are a couple of basic premises, and that is, it comes from spirit, and that you have to be pure of spirit in order to receive it, and that anyone who takes it and uses it for personal gain, in other words, you putting their ego before the truth, right, that ultimately that will come around to get them. And so I thought maybe we'd close with just what we talked about earlier today, which is there's confidence and competence, and I think, and then there's humility, right? There's humility, and I think the humility is knowing what we don't know, and sort of being okay with, I need to learn more before I give a medicine to a sick person. Like, that's totally fine. And also to say, this is the best that I understand right now, and then maybe to get some guidance from someone else. I mean, we look for guidance all the time, Are we making the best clinical decision? And to have the humility not to say we know, oh yeah, just give this, that, the other thing, the other thing, the other thing. If you're giving, or if you're taking 3 remedies at a time, 5 remedies at a time. I've heard that there are people who are taking 5, 10, 15 different things inside of a week. There's no possible way to know what each one of them is doing. So part of that humility is to say, I will trust the process. And what homeopathy is it includes, and probably one of the most important things, is the evaluation of the acting of the remedy, of the action of the remedy on the suffering person, to ensure that everything we do subsequent to giving that first dose of the remedy is done with respect to and in deference to the response they had to the single prescription they had before. There you go.
I don't think that matters to those folks.
No, but But
Case
maybe
management doesn't matter.
case management is the core of everything. So if you're look, and again, please, because we get howlers, not judging anyone for what they do. We're just here to speak about capital T truth in terms of what we can find in, from the evidence that we have about homeopathy and what it does, right? That's what we're here to do. Not if you believe in what you do, please do it. And if you then gather evidence and, get an IRB, train in the appropriateness for human subject research, and then conduct the studies as appropriate so that we can expand. But it's probably going to need a name other than homeopathy because I think just because homeopathy deserves its rightful place. Like if we just keep it for what it is, right? The premise and the principles of what it is. And then if there are other ways to take the medicines that Hahnemann were figured out to be used in accordance with the principles, right? But if there's a way to use them otherwise, that's amazing and that's a bonus. However, until such time as there are actual guidelines and then ways in which we can determine what the effects are, and having longitudinal studies, right? Which means not just a person is okay in 3 weeks or a month, but, in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, especially, for us to introduce some new things into the canon of medical literature. I love that. That's it. Kicking off season 3.
That's it.
Yes.
All right, folks. It is 2 minutes to the top of the hour. We've got a meeting we've got to get to.
Yes. We'll be recording next time from one of our favorite places on the planet.
Yes.
Martha's Vineyard, where
We'll be on the
herring
vineyard.
landed in what year? 33?
Shipwrecked in 1833.
Shipwrecked in 1833. I hope we don't shipwreck on the ferry.
So do I.
The Vineyard Ferry. Anyway, thanks for listening, folks.
Ciao.
You know about arnica. You've helped with a cough before. But what happens when your go-to remedies stop working? When symptoms move, change shape, or just don't make sense anymore? That's when it's time to get help from someone trained. At Homeopathy Help Now, you get real homeopathic care with student practitioners supervised by certified professionals. It's thoughtful, safe, and affordable. Visit homeopathyhelpnow.com to request a consultation today.